It's crap contents. It's crap contents. It's crap content. Welcome to crap content. I love playing video games. But sometimes it's not about the actual games we play. And it's more about how you feel the game and how we actually play the game. Sometimes it can improve the games. So on this episode, we're going to have a look at my top 5 favourite controllers. Starting with this one, at number 5, the Sega Saturn, the second controller. And I do like this, although it does feel a little bit cheap and plasticky. It just plays beautifully when you're playing like games like Sega Rally or Daytona or any of the Sega Saturn games. I do love the little buttons here. It fits well in the hand. It all seems to make sense as well. You don't get confused. And it's a beautiful little controller at number 5 to start our list off. Next up, number 4. The Gamecube Controller. Or the Wavebird. It doesn't matter. They're both pretty good. And again, I'm loving this one just for the layout of the buttons being where you've got a nice big A button and B, and you've got all the little buttons here. And the joystick feels good. It all feels pretty good. And I love the sensitivity on these buttons, as well as the Z button. It does feel pretty good to play with. And you can play for long periods of time without worrying. Doesn't give you any hand ache or anything. Do love this one the best for my GameCube. And if you can afford the Wavebird, definitely get it. It's worth getting. Also, the batteries seem to last forever in them. It's pretty good for the batteries. And you've got a little thing there for picking, if you've got more than one player and one person with joysticks, you can pick different channels for the signal. It's a pretty good little game controller. Next up, number 3. So, Xbox controller, the fat one. I prefer this bigger one. I think they call it the Duke or something. I can't remember. And you've got your memory cards in there. But this big version of it, I just love playing. And the 5 buttons just lay out pretty good. It's got a nice feel. Again, the button layout is pretty good and responsive. I do like how these A-beam buttons are. And there's 2 extra black and white buttons and your pause button. It's a beautiful controller. And I know people didn't really like this big chunky version. But I just love it. It just suits me. And when I'm playing, I always use this on the Xbox now. It's a beautiful controller. My second favorite controller ever is the Wii U Controller. I just love this thing. The way you can touch it, play it on the screen, the feel of it, the way you can talk to it. It's got a camera. The battery seems to last quite a long time for playing. It feels pretty good. The buttons are there, pretty good. I do love this controller. I think, yes, it's quite heavy after a while, but it's still one of my favourite controllers to play. And I do love the Wii U and this Wii U controller. It's definitely worth my number 2 of all-time favourite controllers. Definitely. For my number one controller, it could have easily been the Xbox One controller, because it does feel beautiful. Again, the batteries last for ages in it, which is pretty good, and it has a nice feel, and I do like how that lights up. And it's beautiful. The way it moves, the way it plays. It could have easily been that. But I just love the PlayStation 4 controller. Everything about it is just sublimely good. The trigger buttons, the light, the touch sensitive bit, the speaker for stuff shouting at you and things on games. These things all seem gimmicky, but to me, they add so much when you hear the little radio come through there, or You have to touch the thing and move stuff about or click it. It's such a beautiful controller. And it just plays beautifully. I never get bored of using that. And again, the battery's pretty good on it. It doesn't last as good long as that one. But it lasts fair enough. And it's a beautiful controller. And that's my number one controller. But let's have a look at some honorable mentions. And that's my favorite all-time controller. It's beautiful. Some of my other favorite controllers that I couldn't really give a score. The Wii controller. I know it got slagged off big time when it got released and everything, but I do enjoy using this controller. It feels so good. I like the chunkiness of the buttons. It has the touch feel. The little button lights up. And it's not a bad little controller. I do enjoy playing on this one. And it's beautiful. And the batteries last quite a long time in it. Nice little controller. Now for my racing games, for Ridge Racer games, all the early Gran Turismo games, this controller is amazing with a force feedback on the steering wheel, and you've got all your other buttons and things. This plays beautifully, and whenever I play Ridge Racer Tab 4 or the helicopters, I have to use this just because it just feels great driving with that, and the feedback's just amazing on it. It feels like really driving. It's hard to explain how good that controller really is. Now, I know a lot of people wasn't fans of the Wii controller. People didn't like it being able to do the moving and stuff. But I loved it. Just so you could sit back like that and just play without having to hold it as a controller or anything. And I love that aspect of it. It's a beautiful little controller. And you can do your moving and fighting with it and things, skiing. It's such a cool controller, really. And I don't mind it. I do enjoy using it for the Wii. It's one of my favorites. It's a good controller. And it's worth mentioning. One I purchased recently was this steering wheel for the 360. It's wireless. And it all lights up green and things, and you've got all your buttons. But it's quite responsive for driving on Forza and Horizons and things. It's quite a little cool steering wheel. It feels pretty good. I was a bit sus about it, but it feels really good. And I do like using it for driving and things. And again, the batteries last ages in it. It's worth mentioning because it's quite a good controller, really. Beat the original PlayStation controller. It's still just sublimely good. The whole thing about it just feels brilliant. And, you know, they never changed that even when they got to the PS4 and PS5. It's just a standard feel, and it's just one of the best controls out there, really. Had to mention it. Obviously, you can't beat playing on an arcade type thing. It's just perfect to play. This is Green Crab Content. Thanks for watching. It's crab contents. It's crab contents. It's crab content.